All right, we're going to call back to order from closed session. We'll go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Councilmember Kusamoto.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Murphy. Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Pro-Tem Baker.
Here.
And Mayor Hasselbrink.
Here.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may report out.
Yes, please.
The council did meet in closed session regarding the matter that was announced prior to going into closed session. It was informative only. No formal votes were requested or taken.
Thank you. And if you could please join us as we do the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Murphy and the invocation by Councilmember Wilson.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing for the invocation. Bow your heads. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. Where there's sadness, joy. Bless our first responders and those who oversee our city. And please watch us as we conduct the city's business tonight. Amen.
Amen.
And if colleagues could join me down front for a quick. Okay, September is World Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and I'd like to bring our representative from the Alzheimer's Society to come up and give us a little presentation.
My name is Vicki Sofa, and I'm an advocate for Alzheimer's Orange County. And on behalf of Alzheimer's Orange County, I want to thank the mayor, members of the council, and the city of Los Alamitos for acknowledging September as World Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Today, there's over 84,000 people affected in Orange County with Alzheimer's, and over 47 million people in the world have Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. And that number is going to triple between now and 2050. So since 1982, Alzheimer's Orange County has been the county's largest local not-for-profit organization dedicated to providing free education, support, and advocacy to the people and families living with memory loss. We're so grateful for your help and in raising awareness about this devastating impact of Alzheimer's disease. We're now the third leading cause of death in Orange County. So we invite you to take the first step towards a dementia-free community by participating in our Walk for Alzheimer's. The Walk for Alz is the largest community event to raise awareness and to bring one step closer to finding a cure. Each year, over 10,000 people participate in our Walk for Alz, uniting the entire community in a fight against dementia. So if you can get ready, get registered, and visit us on www.alz.oc.org. If anyone you know is in need of our services, please reach out for our 24/7 helpline. It's staffed with social worker professionals by calling 844-HELP-for-ALZ. Again, thank you, Mayor, and the City Council members and the City of Los Alamitos for joining Alzheimer's Orange County as we recognize September as World Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Thank you.
And then if we could grab a break and take a picture, I'll trade you. And if we could have our city attorney, Carrie Reisman, come on up. So sadly, this is Kerry and his law firm. This is his last meeting with us. He has been with our city, providing us fabulous legal counsel for the past 5 years now. He really brought us through some interesting times and has given us a sense of stability throughout our city that's allowed us to do some pretty good things here. So we just wanted to thank you for your advice, your counsel, and your friendship with all of us, and we wish you the best in the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to say it's been my pleasure representing the city, working with your fabulous staff, your city council, the former city council people. It's an experience I'll never forget, and I'm leaving you in very good hands in Michael Daught, who is replacing me as my successor, and his law firm. So best of luck to Los Alamitos and all of you.
Thank you.
You want to take her around?
Oh.
And next, we have a presentation by Tracey Farmer on behalf of the LA Seismic regarding their Seismic Survey 2017.
Hello, good evening. I just need to hand these out. So I'm Tracey Farmer on behalf of LA Seismic. Good evening. I only have a short amount of time to be brief and informational. So what I'll do is I'll start off with some frequently asked questions regarding the Seismic Survey project that we've successfully completed in and throughout LA Basin. First, who is LA Seismic? LA Seismic is a private geophysical consulting company serving private, institutional, and governmental clients. What is the purpose of the survey? To perform a speculative seismic shoot and obtain a 3D image of the Earth's subsurface layers for portions of Long Beach, Seal Beach, to include the Naval Weapons Station, Rossmore, and Los Alamitos. What permits are required? An encroachment permit is required from the local agency to perform the survey within the public rights of way. The benefits of the survey. The survey will provide state-of-the-art data on the composition and the underground strata in far greater detail than ever possible before. This is due to the tremendous advances in technology. Portions of this data will be donated to Caltech and the USGS, who will in turn produce updated maps of fault locations and soil liquefaction. This data will also benefit local governmental agencies, scientific institutions, and underground resource agencies. The survey process. GPS wireless nodes are set in soft landscape. We only place these sensors in soil areas that record seismic activities below the ground. The battery life has been extended to 30 days, which means that once placed in the ground, these devices record activity that will cumulatively create a 3D seismic strata. And that's produced by Vibra-sized trucks parading on the streets and imparting acoustic energy into the ground so that these devices can record and produce a 3D seismic strata up to about 15,000 feet below the ground. Another question is, what will the vibration feel like? Will it do any damage to property? The vibration will barely be noticeable, and no damage to property will occur as a result. There have been over 128,000 locations surveyed in the LA Basin since 2009. What notice is to the public is given. Advertisements are placed in local publications, and public outreach presentations are made, such as this one I'm doing today. A brochure is also sent to every address within 600 feet of the following weeks. Schedule routes, and LA Seismic advanced teams will walk along the route of the trucks to notify businesses and residents. And what I'll do now is just go through a brief PowerPoint presentation. Again, LA Seismic is a private geophysical consulting company based in Long Beach. Urban seismic projects have been performed using this modern technology since 2009 and in over 20 local cities, and has the support of the USGS and Caltech. LA Seismic has received letters of recommendation from Dr. Clayton of Caltech, the Water Replenishment District in Southern California, and other agencies. LA Seismic is proposing to perform geophysical testing to map the Earth's subsurface for seismic research. Data created by this project will allow for scientific studies on the behavior of geological strata in the area, which plays an important role in creating a clear picture of the subsurface. Here you will see the actual white sensor that's placed in the ground, which records all of the activity under the ground. It is about the size of a coffee canister. I have a life-size. Time. But this is what the sensor looks like. As I said before, modern technology has allowed this device to become wireless, so no longer are wires required to run above the ground to get the same information that these wireless devices will record. They are buried, so they're not seen. Once the devices have been placed, and there will be about 5,900 of these placed throughout the project area of Long Beach, Seal Beach, Los Alamitos, and Rossmore. The vibra-sized trucks will parade a route and impart the energy into the ground to create the specific vibration that these will record to create the seismic strata. And the little cartoon just shows the truck in motion and how it sends the energy into the ground. That information is bounced back up to the device to cumulative record throughout the project area. This is the size of the truck, very similar to the size of a waste truck, garbage truck, and recycling truck. They look interesting. They grab a lot of attention when they are on the street, but they only emit the acoustic energy into the ground, which is required to create the 3D picture. So the project timeline, the duration that we will actually be in Rossmore, and that includes surveying to confirm locations for the sensors to be placed, actually placing the devices, and the trucks parading, and to remediate the area. Once we're done is about 3 weeks, and non-consecutive will be about 2 days for the surveying and preparing the holes, 2 days to deploy the nodes, and about 2 days to parade the trucks, and then 2 days to collect and remediate the areas to previous conditions. This is the overall project area, which I said before includes Long Beach, Rossmore, Los Alamitos, and Seal Beach. And I've supplied those larger maps so you can see a little bit more specificity of where the sensors will be placed to the city. The seismic survey is extremely meaningful to the scientific community and will help determine the impact of possible earthquakes, near-surface ruptures, and soil liquefaction. LA Seismic will provide cities and governmental agencies with a liquefaction study at no cost, the magnitude of earthquakes from faults in the area of study, and disaster preparedness and emergency response plans. Okay, so before I get too much into detail and eat up the rest of the time I have brought our resident seismologist who can speak a little bit more about the technical terms and assessments of the project, Mr. Dan Hollis.
Hi, my name is Dan Hollis. I'm a seismologist. I work with LA Seismic. I also collaborate with Caltech on various projects. And I've been involved in probably 4 or 5 projects in the Los Angeles basin over the past decade of similar types. And I'd like to really, this data is very important and it provides a real benefit to society. One that was mentioned is looking at seismic hazards. Not too far from here is the Newport-Inglewood Fault Zone, and Caltech has a seismic network here that we can see felt earthquakes and locate them there. But this 5,900 sensors out here acts like a giant telescope, and we can really see some small earthquakes out here, and we can locate that, so we can see how the pops, the snap, crackles, and pops, if you will, of the faults in the system, and kind of understand, where they're moving, where they're locked up, what the potential. We also can see what the structure and the geometry of the faults are. Also, a benefit that we get out here, besides looking at structures of faults and the seismicity that they have, is we can determine what the ground motion potential is. By some of the passive data, we can understand the velocities, and the velocities we can predict ground motions from various earthquakes, whether they be local earthquakes or earthquakes on the San Andreas Fault. And this is important for 2 reasons. One, when you build infrastructure, especially critical infrastructure, or roads, hospitals, and like that, you need to know this information. Usually it's the top 30 meters that you look at, but it's really important down to anything that will shake, maybe down to 1,000 meters down to a kilometer. And this data will be generated from what will be given to Caltech and the USGS, and that can be used to predict ground motion. And not only does it help in building infrastructure like there, but that will go into the liquefaction out there. Lastly, the Newport-Inglewood Fault is actually not a bad thing out there. It acts as a barrier to saltwater intrusion. So here in the Los Angeles basin, we store fresh water in the aquifer and withdraw it, and store it when we have excess out there. But along the Newport-Inglewood Fault that acts as a barrier, there's little holes in there. And this survey will identify where there's holes, where you can see saltwater intrusion, and that would help water management districts to better manage the water to prevent that. Basically, I'm kind of out of time, but later on I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so like I said, where I realize we've stretched our 10-minute time limit, but I will leave my business card as well as some informational brochures for anyone to feel free to contact me directly for any further information. Are there any other questions that you have?
I have a question, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it sounds like a really interesting project. I guess the question I have is this project something that is actually under contract by a government agency, or are you doing this project to collect data to potentially sell? So I noticed here one of your bullet points was that it has the support of USGS and Caltech, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're under contract.
Correct.
Is it a science project that you're doing to potentially
Basically,
get commercial value that you can sell outside of the city?
Exactly. Seismic companies, geophysical consulting companies perform speculative shoots very often. Hopefully there are people who would need this information that could buy it. We do have agreements. We have a great working relationship with Caltech, as well as the USGS, who do extrapolate all the data. We collect the data. USGS extrapolates what data they need for their studies, as well as the USGS.
Yeah, a lot of adjacent agencies that do projects in our area as a part of their public outreach do what you're doing. So I was trying to differentiate between whether this was a commissioned project that is part of a government agency or this is a commercial aspect.
This is a private geophysical consulting
and
company.
The other thing is that the picture that you have in the presentation where you show the trash truck versus your seismic truck. So within our city, we have obviously a waste contract, and our waste contract has a franchise agreement. The franchise agreement covers the ability that heavy truck destroys our streets. So I was just curious, when you talk about the length and weight, and probably more from a city management perspective, Brett, is there any concern about the weight on our streets? Has this been something taken under consideration? If it's not a government-sanctioned project, to let commercial vehicles go out there when we charge the trash companies an amount to put a lot of weight on our streets? I'm just curious.
I think it'd be part of the evaluation of the encroachment permit that is what they need from us. Stephen, anything on the, and I don't know completely the duration. You did indicate the duration of time, but the duration would indicate the wear and tear on our streets, but that could be incorporated into the encroachment permit itself.
Well, if I can, the duration that the trucks will be on the street, it will be considered a rolling parade, wherein the truck will be in one specific source point for about 2 minutes. The truck will stop. There will probably be two trucks on the source route in this city. The trucks will stop, accompanied by a police car in the back, as well as a police car in the front. They will stop simultaneously, drop the pad, and vibrate for about 90 seconds. And it's not a very interesting. You will feel the vibrations if you're in about a 300 to 400 radius of the trucks, but the vibration does dissipate the farther out you are. So we are fully insured. We've not had incident in the past.
Is that a police of the local municipality that would provide that kind of escort service?
Yes, sir.
And then I guess just back to staff, just so I'm clear, does this require an encroachment permit, and is there kind of recovery costs involved with this since it's a commercial aspect? I'm just trying to figure out what the deal.
Yeah, we only had received an initial, in effect, a sales presentation from this group, and we then asked them to come back to the city council, because of potential concerns or issues on any impact, and also to notify the public if we're going to go forward with this. That I had not heard about a police escort till right now in terms of 2 vehicles, one on either side. That's I'm not sure if you're doing that in other cities, and also if you're including in the encroachment permit the impact on the streets. Is that being taken into account in other jurisdictions right now?
Yes, we have. The standard permit that's issued is an encroachment permit. Only in the city of Long Beach, we get an additional parade permit just to parade the vehicles. But as long as we have the general liability insurances in place, and that's determined per city, that has sufficed.
Thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
So thank you for being here. So you answered some of the questions I had, but besides the strata data that you might get from this, what other do you see, like pockets of water or other minerals down there?
Yes.
In terms of that, so you can actually uncover something that someone doesn't know that's under there.
Yes, definitely. The 3D seismic strata yields information regarding the layers. It generates water pockets. The aquifers are shown. As Mr. Hollis can attest. So there's a lot of information that's yielded. We can see up to about 15,000 feet below the ground.
But then the information that you obtain, then that's something that you will hold on to until somebody might need to buy that from you. Is that correct?
No, well, the information, once it's extrapolated and transcribed for soil liquefaction, earthquake data, that's immediately supplied to Caltech, USGS, who will in turn provide that to the respective cities.
Okay, so like the liquefaction, I'll say risk assessment then we will see that from Caltech, not from you all then?
From USGS, yes.
Okay, yeah, okay.
For sure.
Okay. And then, so if you were to see a pocket of, let's say, oil, petroleum or something down there, does that also go to USGS and they will have that as part of their public record?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out what the business model is. So you go around thumping on the ground and taking 3D pictures using some kind of a sonic, right, sonar kind of.
It's basically an ultrasound of the ground.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And so, would you just? I guess I'm just kind of curious. What do you do when you get the data? You just give it away?
It's sold to interested parties if they find use for it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's so like a developer might need it to understand
Exactly.
the ground in which they want to build. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's your business model. But then
Yes.
the scientific community gets it for science purposes.
Right, in exchange for transcribing the data.
So doing the analysis, meaning so you're just
Exactly.
giving them raw analysis and they have to then do the 3D picture of it?
Yes,
Oh, I see. Okay, so all the
That's
signal
correct.
processing basically. I see. Okay.
that is correct.
And then so you get that back, and then that's what you end up providing to someone who wishes to understand what's under their property, under their land. Is that you get the process data back from Caltech, for instance? Is that how it works?
Well, Caltech is more interested in the earthquake research part of it. We actually picked up multiple earthquake activity, and there has been video published showing earthquakes actually in motion. Very rare footage that have been recorded from these devices. We picked up We picked up the earthquake that happened in Carson. We picked up earthquakes that happened in Japan. So that is the specific information that Caltech is looking for.
But that was a result of planting those whatever that you had.
Right.
Okay. Not because you were pounding on the ground.
Well, right. That information is passive and it's collected because these are monitoring. They're recording 24/7.
Sure.
Right.
And then actively, you would then go ahead and start the ultrasound pulse to then get the reflections back, correct?
Right. And that's what creates the 3D seismic strata.
But then you don't, okay, so any of that data, so it's all raw data, you have to get someone else to process it.
Exactly.
Okay, I
Right.
get that.
Right.
And then you make that available for sale to some
Yes.
commercial, okay.
That is correct.
And then the sensors stay in the ground, you said 59, how many nodes? 59 nodes?
About 5,900 in the whole project area.
Okay. And they stay there for how long?
These will be there for less than 30 days.
Okay.
It'll be less than 30 days. They're temporarily placed. We dig a hole about 11 inches, drop these in, and cover with the original native soil so that they're not seen, they're not considered trip hazards. So you don't know that they're there other than the green landscape whiskers that we place to identify where we are going to place them. And they are GPS tracked as well.
Okay, and then why the footprint that you have selected on that one project area map? Why that one? Is it just the one of opportunity or a specific reason? I don't know what page.
Well, the maps that we generate in the beginning are called pristine maps, and they are very specifically placed from one to the next.
I'm sorry.
On the map.
I'm talking this map, this footprint.
Right.
Okay, so you chose this area for a reason, or is it just random?
Well, we've been in Long Beach. Long Beach is about 64% of the whole area.
Okay.
We've been in different parts of Long Beach since about 2006, right then. And the information, the last time we were in Long Beach was around 2012. And the seismologists as well as the geologists realized that the Earth's layers change so much. So the portion that's Long Beach will be considered the difference in the changes of the Earth's layers. So we wanted to recapture what those changes are.
I see.
And since there has been so much concerns regarding soil liquefaction, if you've been on the news, I've seen them as recent as March, where the geologists are talking about soil liquefaction, especially the closer to the water we are. It's very real. It's a very valid concern when you have property that could liquefy as a result of an earthquake.
Okay, thanks for all the.
Okay.
Thanks for my questions. You're feeling them in the information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you know when you're going to start?
I'm sorry?
Do you know when you're going to start?
Well, we've already started the preparatory process in Long Beach, Seal Beach, with pre-digging the holes so that we can deploy these. The only place that we have not started digging is Los Alamitos. Once they're all, the locations have been confirmed, we will go ahead and deploy the sensors throughout the project area, and that's probably going to be about 2 months from now when we place these.
Thank you.
And then generate a truck schedule.
Thank you.
Okay.
You know Rossmore is not Los Alamitos, right?
Right, you're just next door.
Yeah, but you have to go to the county for that, right?
Yeah, we did get I did get a permit from Orange County.
I think I was gonna ask that.
Yes. Any more questions?
Okay.
I'll leave my business cards as well as a stack of brochures in case anyone wants to reach out to me directly. My cell phone number is there, so feel free to give me a call with any questions or concerns.
Great, thank you. Okay, oral communications. At this time, any individual in the audience may come forward to speak on any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Remarks are limited to not more than 5 minutes per speaker. Any public comments?
Good evening, City Council. I am Stephen Hammond of Greenbrook, former member of the Los Alamitos Cable TV Commission. At the council meeting of August 21st, you approved, without discussion, consent calendar item 10B to abolish the Los Alamitos Cable TV Commission. The city staff report justified abolition because staff was pleased with LATV management, and a whole $1,500 per year would be saved by dissolving the commission. Staff concluded that the commission was no longer necessary. In tonight's agenda alone, item 10, warrants, you charge to the LATV Station Reserve Fund $1,200 for station management fees and $1,100 program production coverage of 2 city events, July 4th and whatever music and movies airs. At last month's meeting, you approved warrants totaling $5,100 against the LATV fund, including $4,300 for studio labor and supplies. On award of LATV to Our Los Al 2 years ago, the current operations manager, Larry Strother, opined that he did not need LATV commission meddling. But while expenditures for TV production and equipment have steadily and rapidly depleted the LATV Reserve Fund, the expertise of Mr. Strother in municipal TV station management has not been demonstrated. School and government programs are produced, but there is no public access or any prospect for it. Only a few years ago, LATV was well on the way to providing opportunities for public access production to residents of Los Alamitos. Now, Mr. Strother is the sole arbiter of programming, that is, government meetings, live high school sports, and other high school programs. He makes no effort to provide the kind of outreach, training, or facilities to prospective producers that used to be the case. For equipment purchases, the requirements, purposes, applications, and comparisons are always unjustified and undocumented. The losaltv.com interwebsite is unreliable. Its format has now been changed so much that it is unclear how to watch LATV live at all. Fortunately, John Underwood, through his site losaltv.org, generously streams LATV live, as well as his own productions, via YouTube. The current losaltv.com program schedule is for August 2nd through 8th. But programs, when shown on losaltv.com, do not consistently match programs scheduled on losltv.com anyway. And the schedule does not even appear in the News Enterprise as it used to. If the July 4th show was ever on, it is no longer available. Mr. Underwood's plea at the last council meeting to retain the commission was definitive and should have been publicly acknowledged and debated. Council should enlist interested activist volunteers to reinstate public oversight of LATV and its operations manager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and esteemed members of the City Council of the City of Los Alamitos. My name is Jeff Snow, and I'm a board member of the Aerospace Education Foundation of Huntington Beach. We are the nonprofit foundation board that makes the Breitling Air Show of Huntington Beach possible, and I'm here tonight to share with you and your residents that all are invited to our absolutely free air show on the beach September 29th, September 30th, and October 1st. This year's performance will begin on the spot at 12 p.m. noon and end at 4 p.m. We have 19 performers with not more than 30 seconds intermission between acts. So it is non-stop, spectacular entertainment. It's family-friendly, patriotic, and spectacular is probably an understatement. This year's features will include two finale performers, both the United States Navy Blue Angels and the Canadian Snowbirds. We encourage all Los Alamitos residents to come, learn about the magic of math, science, technology, and engineering through aviation, and we encourage our City Council friends and city staff to come enjoy the show as well. You may receive an additional number of calls about noise. We call that the sound of freedom, and hope that you'll agree with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time. I wanted to speak on an agenda item 11D. Is this the appropriate time?
Yes. Hi,
my name is John Bonfani. I own a property 3561 Howard Avenue. I appreciate the attention to this issue. I learned of this just recently, and I was kind of surprised of it, and I wanted just to kind of bring up a couple questions and points that maybe you guys could help me with. The first thing is I understand that the city engaged in a negotiation with our existing trash refuge company, and I think that's in regards to trying to become compliant with the organic waste recycling program. And what bothered me a little bit about it, and I guess one of my concerns was the fact, the first item was that I guess we did a bunch of due diligence here in negotiating the contract with our existing refuge company, but I didn't see where we actually looked. I mean, I see something where it says the city staff believes this is the lowest possible cost and that has been negotiated, and yet I'm not sure if we've really gone to open bid or determined whether that really is the lowest possible cost for this program. That would be the first question, if that we've done enough homework to determine this is the best that we could do. The second item was interesting too, in the sense that it was an immediate increase in the refuge cost by 8.2%. And I was a little surprised at that because looking at those numbers, it seems like, according to this report, the city has identified less than 15, and I believe it's 11 businesses and institutions that actually warrant or have a sufficient amount of organic waste necessary to comply with the recycling program. And yet this 8.2% was seemed to be passed across all commercial properties in the city. And it didn't seem right to me that a business who engages in creating organic waste is subsidized, part of their overhead or their costs for this organic waste process is being subsidized by all the commercial properties. I use Republic. We have a trash bin that's picked up twice a week. It's a 3 cubic yard bin, but we don't generate any organic waste. And it seems weird that in the middle of a contract period where we've already established this with Republic, a new requirement comes in play. And I don't know whether that's really appropriate to negotiate with the existing contract holder, or whether to go to open or public bid to determine if there's another vendor out there, one. And two, is it really fair to impact 500 properties or 600 commercial properties in Los Alamitos when only 11 or 12 generate that waste? And so for that, I felt like I was compelled to bring that to your attention, or at least question how we could bring this up and vote on that when I'm not sure all the sufficient amount of due diligence is done, not only on the cost of the project, but the requirement that all commercial properties bear in that burden. And so I just asked the City Council to reconsider voting, because it appears your staff has recommended that you do so, and at least look at the various aspects of this and determine whether it's really fair that a few create the waste but the many pay for it, and whether or not $130,000 is really a fair and reasonable cost for this service. I understand it's a pilot program. We don't understand the actual cost for it. But there might be other organizations that don't have a pilot program that already recycle this kind of waste. And it seemed to me that one of the things that brought to my attention was it said specifically businesses that generate 4 cubic yards of organic waste per week shall arrange for organic waste recycling services. So it's really asking businesses to arrange for recycling services for their organic waste. I don't know if it's a responsibility of the city. It is a responsibility of the city to create a recycling program. It may be as simple as notifying those that are affected and create a permitting process. I don't know whether it's our responsibility as a city to negotiate contracts on behalf of the 11 individuals or 12 entities that actually are going to be creating that waste. Maybe they're better suited to figure out the contracts as long as they abide by the terms of this assembly bill. And so I think I've used my 5 minutes. I appreciate you giving me the time. Thank you.
Sir, can I ask you what the address? Could you just repeat that again?
Sure.
And what's the
my
business?
name's John Benfani, and the address that I own and occupy is 3561 Howard Avenue, Los Alamitos, California.
What type of business is it?
It's a commercial building. We have multiple units in the building, mostly financial, insurance, CPA firm, escrow office, things of that nature.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll go ahead and close oral communications and bring it back to council comments, and we'll start with Warren.
Oh,
why
thank
not?
you. So, thank you for that, Mayor. I will be attending the Orange County Mosquito and Vector Control District trustee meeting this Thursday, so nothing really to report out of there. There has been some, I guess, Aedes aegypti and West Nile virus incidents in La Habra area, so be careful out there. Make sure you dump any standing water. And then the other thing I want to talk about, and it was kind of a personal thing of mine, but I do want to bring that up to your attention. This past week and the week before was National Drive Electric Week, and I got this crazy idea to use the City Hall parking to host this event. And we had 34 electric vehicles registered, I think, which we probably had about 28 of them show up. I did pay the rental fee to the city, and Corey furnished a volunteer that was here, or a staffer that was here to, take care of us. But the mayor showed up with her car. Councilmember Wilson showed up with his car, and we had a lot of electric vehicles here. And it was a great event, and there'll be one next year and probably for years to come. But it was nice to have the only one in Orange County, and there has not been one in Orange County since I think about 2013, 2014. So we're back on the map with respect to National Drive Electric Week. And again, the city manager showed up, Corey showed up, Stephen was there to help us get started as well. But I would ask the council that we can look at hosting this for the county and get the word out there on the benefits and the value of owning and driving an electric vehicle, because I think it's just good for the environment, and it's good for the future. With that, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Richard.
Thank you. I'd like to start and thank our longtime business owner, Judy and Karen Clabeau, for their wonderful fundraiser for the Casa Youth Center, Youth Shelter. It's pretty impressive to have 150 people at your house, all of them having a good time and generously donating. I think the mayor pro tem when I left was in. Did you win?
I got pretty close.
Okay. And also, thank you. I went out to Kenmont and looked at the project out there. Thank you to the residents out there. It took a long time. I thought we'd be done a year ago, but as you know, the project was actually too small to get a bid. So Dave Hunt wisely rolled it into the big project, and we're able to at least get it done. And I understand there were some improvements made at the last minute. So it's, I think people are pretty happy out there. I gave Brett an article about air traffic patterns that was in the Register, and I'd like you to come back and, at least over my house, both helicopters and commercial jets are flying on a regular basis, and not low enough to be loud. And finally, also on the noise subject, I'd like to find out, Brett, what are the rights of citizens during construction? There's a lot going on right now in my neighborhood that is disturbing people, and they'd like to know what can be done about it. Thank you.
Josh?
I'd like to thank Councilmember Kusamoto for arranging the electric vehicle event. It's fantastic to see how many EVs that we had for the event. Also, thanks to Clabeau's as well, as attended the Cost Use Shelter event, and also they had their open house recently. So for those who attended, thank you. Attended the West Orange County Legislative Mixer. So it was great to hear updates from representatives within our areas, and also with other council members from other cities. And keep it brief.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I asked the mayor through the city manager's office to support bringing the California water fix agenda item for the next council meeting. So it's just looking for the focus, basically a resolution on behalf of the city if we decide to support it, to be able to support the activities for the Bay Delta area where they do the tunneling and the intake project up there. I think the mayor will probably close in her honor, but I just wanted to personally share my regards to the Jimsa family, that we lost a true hero of our community, really unbelievable volunteer, and somebody that I think our community will always remember in Alice Jimsa, and council member, mayor, over 20 years, and a mentor for a lot of us that have been in the city government for quite a long time. So to Marv Jimsa, the best to you, and I know the mayor will take care of that in her talk. A couple other things going on. I also attended the CASA fundraiser, the legislative mixer in Cyprus. Just wanted to thank our local congressman, Congressman Lowenthal and Congressman Correa, and Sharon Quirk Silver, assembly members, and the local assembly and state senate. Janet Nguyen was there for coming in, really providing a great update to our business community and giving us an opportunity to ask questions and to get answers on business issues that face the community. I guess the other thing that I would think at some point it would be interesting to talk about, and I'm not sure if it'll be an agenda item, I think I'll just ask staff, is, there's a big project going on with the Olson Company on a property that's up against Cerritos Boulevard, and I was just curious if if there's an opportunity. There's been some public hearings, but it doesn't, getting feedback, there doesn't seem to be a lot of knowledge of the project and what's going on. And I was just wondering, City Manager, if you could just talk high level and just give the community just a little bit of an update of the project being considered over off Cerritos.
There is going to be an item related to that project at the next Planning Commission as a public hearing. Stephen, can you give an update on that topic?
Certainly. On Wednesday, September 27th at 7 p.m., the Planning Commission will have their first hearing regarding this project. It's proposed to be 50 units of residential condominiums, which would be owned individually. The units range from 1,300 square feet to almost 1,800 square feet, and they're proposed at the intersection. I'm sorry, they're proposed at the site where the original Cottonwood church site is on Sausalito, just west of Chestnut, but it's one property over from Chestnut, almost where Walnut hits Sausalito. It's that small lot right there. 50 units. The Planning Commission will be looking at the environmental document created for it, and they'll be looking at the proposed project at their first hearing. At their first hearing, there will not be any resolutions or recommendations at this time. We're taking public input. We've noticed the site. We placed the sign on the site. We've noticed to everybody 500 feet from the project, and there was also a public hearing notice in last week's News Enterprise newspaper.
Yeah. So projects this big with 50 new units coming into our city, we always get feedback from the community that, hey, I didn't know about it. And our city does the best job we can to communicate. But I would just invite the community, if there's people out there that are interested in hearing about this project, a lot of units, pretty condensed area. I'd rather you be able to have an opportunity to influence it at the Planning Commission. You can look on our website under Council and Agenda, and you can see when that commission meeting is, and I'd encourage everybody to go out there. Mayor, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended the Los Alamitos Museum fundraiser at the Brew Kitchen, which was very well attended. I want to thank Joe from the Brew Kitchen for literally closing down his restaurant on a weeknight during dinner time. And it was just very well attended. I think the museum was very, very happy with the results of that. I attended the Los Al Chamber breakfast with guest speaker Chef Bruno Serrato, who is the owner and chef for the Anaheim White House that is currently rebuilding from their devastating fire. He was wildly entertaining, and 7:30 in the morning, that's hard to do. Congratulations, Warren, on the Los Alamitos Electric Drive-In. That was cool. You see a Tesla Roadster and a van, and all these people here with their green stickers and electric car chargers were probably the least stressed about the upcoming gas tax. So that was very good. Thank you very much for putting us on the map for that. Orange County Fire Authority has named Patrick McIntosh as interim fire chief. Chief McIntosh has been a firefighter since 1979, first with the city of San Gabriel, and then in 1982 he came over to OCFA. He ended his time at OCFA as deputy chief, and then in 2010 he joined Huntington Beach Fire Department as their fire chief. We're excited to have him as an interim position. The goal is we will be hopefully appointing a new fire chief within 6 months. I've been appointed to the search committee, so that'll be an interesting process to go through, trying to do something long-term for this very large organization. On Saturday, I want to remind everybody, we are a military town here. Half of our landmass is a military base. And on Saturday, Lieutenant Joel Armstrong, our former director of Sunburst Youth Academy, led the deployment of 300 citizen soldiers from the 184th Infantry Battalion for a year tour of duty to Jordan to train along Jordanian troops to burst the U.S. security footprint. And then also on Sunday, General John Lathrop from JFTB led the deployment of 300 citizen soldiers for a year tour of duty to Afghanistan called Operation Freedom Centennial. This is the unit's first combat deployment since the Korean War. So our thoughts and prayers are with these soldiers that are over there now, and also with their families. Their families are giving up their normal family life for a minimum of a year. I did attend the League of California Cities conference in Sacramento with our city manager. It was a very, very productive 2.5 days of a lot of walking, a lot of talking. We had a productive meeting with Senator Janet Wynn. We were able to get some things talked about, at least in her head, to help us move forward on some items. Lots of networking. They had a lot of sessions on homelessness, on pension reform, on financial stability, and kind of forecasting the uncertainty as all cities do. Also making sure that we keep local control along with some of our state legislatures. So that was very good. Both of the initiatives that we supported have passed. It was a very quick meeting and quick vote. So I want to thank you for allowing me to attend that. I think we did some very good just networking things with our neighboring cities. And then I do want to close, and I'm going to read this, in memory of Alice Jemsa, who passed away at the beginning of September. Alice and her husband Marv have been in Los Alamitos residents since 1966 and original homeowners in suburbia. She was a school teacher in Cerritos for many years, and she was originally elected to Los Alamitos City Council in 1986 and became the city's first female mayor in 1990. After her tenure on the City Council, Alice continued to serve on the Cultural Arts Commission as responsible for bringing our first photography show to the city. She also served on the Cable Television Commission and more recently on the Parks and Recreation Commission. She was passionate about the history of the city and spent her free time volunteering at the Los Alamitos Museum, ensuring that every child learned of our rich city history. She was very, very proud of the city, and she will be sorely missed, but her legacy will move on. And with that, I'll bring it back to the items from City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. First of all, I want to thank publicly myself and personally Carrie Reisman and Lisa Kranitz, our city attorney firm, for all the service that you've done to the city and to me and to staff and for the City Council. I appreciate all the work that you've done for us and wish you all the best of luck. Thank you very much. And I want to introduce, we have with us tonight an interim Director of Administrative Services that's new with us. Her name is Maria Luisa Valdez. She came from our audit firm with Lance Saul and Lunghard, and she worked side by side with Jason for his last 8 days here. And this is now the start of her 4th week with us. So we're happy to be able to have her here tonight. And ML, is that okay to call you as a nickname? She said that was okay.
Thank you.
And let's see, the League of California Cities, I thank the City Council for allowing me to attend that, and thank the Mayor for all of your support, and we had a really good time there, and it was a great networking opportunity. I agree. It was, and Senator Janet Nguyen is definitely an ally and an asset of ours, and met with us and discussed different things that we're working on with the base, and Lowenthal, Congressman Lowenthal has been working with us as well in our efforts to save our events on the base. So we'll be able to give you updates on that as we move forward. And finally, we want to give an update, a brief update on the Los Alamitos beautification project. And so we have David Hunt ready to give the latest.
Okay, thank you, Brett. As you can tell if you've driven by, the Boulevard project is going along nicely. You can see a lot of plants and the rocks have been put in and all that. There will be some work on the plant area in the meeting islands in the coming week. Some of the plants they put in were too small. They need to upgrade per order and plans. They missed a few, so by going through our checklist on them, we caught a few things and they'll be back out. Also with the plans, just want you to know that in the first meeting island toward Catella and Los Al Boulevard, that's the widest one, we proposed a large tree out there in the middle. We took that out of the bid price because at the time they could not find a large tree, and it would have cost us like $60,000 to get that tree in place. So we pulled it out knowing that that was not a price we wanted to pay for a tree. We've found several that are a lot less, that are down in the $10,000 to $20,000 range. In October, we'll be bringing back to you a staff report asking for some money to pay for that tree, as long as we're under all our budgets and stuff with the project, and that we still have some contingency money left over. Then we'll bring that to you for you guys to decide if you want to put that other tree in, and we'll have pictures of it and how big it will be and all that. So that's coming up. We've had a few delays in the project caused by coordination with Edison. Edison had a lot of issues during the summer and stuff and didn't get to our stuff until recently, and some of their decisions that they made aren't working out. So we're going to have to add some 3-inch conduits to kind of extend some of our lines to our meters to their stuff. So that is an extra that's coming down the line. I don't have the number yet, but I will get that in the next week on there. But it will still be, as of right now, we're still $1,000 below the bid price. So I haven't used any of the contingencies yet. The extra cost for some of these lines will probably take us above that. And it could be in the 10,000 to 30,000 range. Hopefully it's in that range because it's about 1,000 feet of 3-inch lines that we didn't have in there. You'll see the handicap ramps being put in at our crossing there in front of the credit union and the ale house. That hasn't been done yet. The street lights and uplights will be delivered mid-October. They were on back order, as we mentioned before. So they will still come in mid-October, still on schedule. Once we finish with the Edison, if we're going to actually open trench or do some boring of that 3-inch line, then we'll come back and slurry seal the street and then put in all the new loop detectors in the project. So that's kind of the schedule. So you may not see a whole lot of activity right now while our landscape architect is out there going with the contractor's landscape firm and picking better plants that he put out there, and then you'll see those going in. They'll see some trenching out there for the Edison lines to go to our power source. So that's what's coming up in the next week and two.
So I got a question. So 1,000 feet of underground 3-inch conduit?
Yes.
I mean, is that parallel to the street, into the planter, through the planter? Where
It's
is that?
parallel. It's either going to be underneath the sidewalk or it's going to be right on the edge of the gutter in the street. They're going to give us price to do both.
Oh,
We're going to pick the cheaper of the two.
it's going to be pretty expensive. And
Gonna
you'd
add
hope
up.
they'd bore it so that it doesn't screw up the street further.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you know, when we if they do it in the street, it'll be like a small trench in there, and then we'll come back to it. And again, we're going to slurry seal the street up, so it'll cover up that.
Is that normal voltage or higher voltage?
It's normal voltage.
Okay. And the tree wasn't originally in the bid?
We
I mean, I
had
know
it
you said you
origi-
pulled it out, but I thought we approved a project with a tree in it.
You did approve a project with a tree in it, but you didn't approve a project for a $60,000 tree.
Well, how much did we approve?
You were in the neighborhood of $20,000.
Okay, so the tree that we'll approve, hopefully, pretty soon, will be that a tree
It'll
worth
be in
up to
that
20,000.
Yeah.
So why would we have to reapprove it? So it's just make sure it's a tree we like, or
Well, because I have the bid price comes in, and anything above the contingency, I just want to clarify with you guys, you're okay.
oh, so anything over 20 would mean the tree's over 20,000, and but if it's under 20, we probably wouldn't need to see it again, right?
That's up to you.
Okay.
If it's been approved
Yeah,
previously,
I'm
I
just
don't see
saying,
why we
get
would
it through
need-
as fast as we can if it's whatever meets the requirement. But I don't know if
It'll be within the contingency price that you guys approve in the project.
if it's like the home trees that we get, where you can pay extra if you want a better tree. But that would be something that I guess there's a better tree out there that we were able to uncover that would be over 20,000. I guess. I mean, we're interested in hearing about that if that really is out there. So.
But it's coming out of the contingency, right?
Yes.
That 20,000.
Yeah, but
Yes.
if it's coming out of the contingency, that means we must have spent through the 20,000 somewhere else, then, right?
Well, you got to remember the bid price, I took the tree out before the bids came in, because we were getting calls from all the contractors about how expensive that tree was, and did we really want to spend a $60,000 to $70,000?
Oh, so we did not approve the 20,000.
So it wasn't
Oh.
part of the bid.
Oh, then we
It
have
was
to come
part of
back.
the original
Okay.
budget you guys approved in the back, but not part of the bid price that came in.
Okay.
Cool, thank you. I appreciate all the work that you're doing out there. I think the big part for the community was to get all that fencing and traffic blocking stuff done before school started. You guys did a great job. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Sorry, I just have one other question for it. Is it possible to restore the loops back? I know there have been comments and complaints about the signals within that corridor, and I know there are still timed, but is it possible within the context to get those loops restored?
The loops will get restored after they slurry seal, because if you put the loops in and then you slurry seal, you cover them up, and they won't register as well, vehicles above them. We have had our signal maintenance firm out there probably about 6 times to correct things when they go a little haywire out there. That's we have a few tricky areas on a few of the intersections, so we have to kind of bear with that for a little bit. But yes, every now and then one will go haywire, and then we have to go back out there and fix it again.
So when's the slurry seal going to happen?
Probably in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. All right, we'll move on to warrants. Could I get a motion?
I'll move the warrants.
Second.
I do have a question though on one, if I may. So on I have page 8 on the one dated 8/31/17. There's Sunny Slope trees. It says street trees. These aren't for your project, David? These trees that were bought?
Troy's.
Okay. No other questions.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kusamoto.
Aye.
Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Edgar.
Aye.
Mayor Hasselbrink.
Aye. Consent calendar. All consent calendar items may be acted upon by one motion unless a council member requests separate action on a specific item.
I want to pull B and D.
Aye.
I'll move the balance.
Second.
And Richard, aye?
Yes.
Not a yes and aye, okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the balance. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's start with B, Warren.
So B, if I may, so this is we talked about this last month, and this has to do with the streamlining the expedited permitting for EV. It has come to my attention, though, there is I guess Title 24, Part 11, having to do with EV infrastructure in homes, and it seems like it's a smart thing to do, and I'd like to ask the council to not approve this, send it back to staff, and ask them to incorporate this, which is really a provision for, I guess, laying conduit and out to the circuit breaker panel. So the future state, when EVs are more widespread, the homeowner will have a much easier time just running copper and putting a circuit breaker and either hardwire or outlet for their EV. So that's something. Are you aware of this, Stephen? 24. I guess.
Mark's nudging at me that I am, but
yeah. But anyway, take a look at that, and it just seems like I guess the question on the 11B: is there an urgency to get it done this month? Can we wait till?
there is an urgency to have this ordinance in place
This month?
within 30 minutes from today. I mean, 30 days
Wow,
from today.
that's
Yeah.
an urgency.
Okay.
Not 30 minutes. There is an urgency to have this passed. Mark, do you have any comments on the issue he's brought up regarding residential?
In Title 24, 11, there is provisions for new construction.
Yes.
Having that conduit in.
Yes.
This is mandatory by the state that we participate for electrical vehicle chargers. So, and the 11, the building code you're discussing is regarding solar. So, but in the energy code is talking about solar, not EV charging.
But okay, so if you look at it, though, it does say to run the conduits, and it would apply to any kind of remodel of a rebuild of a garage as well.
No,
so.
it would apply to, for instance, the Olson project. The Olson project, every one of those condos, it's for new construction.
Wouldn't that be a great service for the future homeowners, buyers of the Olson property, to have at least the provisions laid out for EV infrastructure in their
And that will
project?
be in their building plans when they come to build those, yes.
Oh, it already is required?
That is required.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So for new construction, for new homes, I should say for new homes, not just new construction, not a remodel of a garage.
Okay, so what I read in this law, it's voluntary. We have to adopt it by ordinance. We don't have to do that. Is what you're saying?
No, sir.
So
this is state law, and they just are asking us to participate in passing an ordinance
voluntarily.
The choice of whether you choose to pass it or not is, yes, voluntary. It goes into effect anyway.
Okay.
And it's just us participating with the state in doing it. There's no written penalty for not doing it.
Okay, but it will be done is really the bottom line. Okay, I'm good with that then. So I have no concerns with this. So I'll go ahead and move this item then to I'd move.
Second. Just a quick question. Warren, were you looking to do something for a remodel of a garage?
I thought that was also included.
And did you want to do the discussion item in the future for that?
Not at this time. We can talk about that if it was worthy of passing something on that.
Sounds good.
So, okay.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, D, Warren, organic waste.
Okay. Well, we have the staff report on this. This is the first time we've seen this one, right? Other than the presentation from Jeff last month.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is an item, Jeff Snow was here previously from Republic at your last council meeting that gave a study session item basically on this to present it to the council for the first time, and this is the follow-up to put it into play. This is something that is mandated by law. It's AB 1826. We need to move forward with this program to take care of organic waste throughout the city. And we do have Mike Ballier here with us, who has, in terms of the due diligence on behalf of the city, we did hire a waste consultant. We have worked with Mike over the past several years in implementing our franchise hauler agreement with Republic. We are working with Republic as our franchise hauler to implement the mandated waste for commercial, the organic waste. And so Mike, on our behalf, has worked with Republic. Republic has worked with us to negotiate the total cost down from, as it's laid out in your staff report, from $217,000 total cost citywide to now just under $130,000, which brings the total percentage of increase to 8.2% on commercial ratepayers. So with that as an introduction, I'll have Mike come up and give some additional feedback and information to the council.
Thank you, Brett. Again, my name is Mike Vallier. I've worked as a consultant to local governments in California since 1991. Assembly Bill 1826 is an extension of the Global Warming Solutions Act, AB 32. The state of California has determined that short-term climate pollutants are released by the methane from food waste decomposing in the landfill. And so this is basically an edict that is backed by the Air Resources Board. The state said we need to eliminate half of that organic waste going to the landfill by the year 2020. If we don't, then we're going to sick the Air Resources Board on you. I enjoyed the comments from the businessmen here. I work for a number of cities. City of Irvine, I actually go out and deal with businesses to explain this legislation and the challenges of it. First and foremost, it's a tiered implementation. So in January of this year, 2017, any business with 4 cubic yards of organic waste is required to have a program. In January of 2019, it goes down to any business that has 4 cubic yards of trash. So yes, the state is coming after your subway leftovers because you have trash service of a 3-yarder twice a week. That's 6 times per week. The competition or the other firms out there to provide this service, they aren't there. Frankly, in my opinion, the cart's been put before the horse. There's not a lot of infrastructure to collect this material because, again, we're not just talking about food donations. We're talking about a state-defined food waste that includes paper that has organic material on it. So, for example, if you're like me and love In-N-Out Burger, that cheese paper there, that's part of what they're mandating. It must be recycled. The city is involved in this because the way the legislation is written, you're responsible for administering, monitoring, and reporting on this program to the state as part of the AB 939 compliance umbrella. You guys may remember AB 939 mandates 50% diversion from the landfills. If a state doesn't comply, they could face fines of up to $10,000 a day. So this has kind of been thrown into that area. I was brought in because I audit haulers, I negotiate, I deal with compliance programs. So, you know, Jeff's probably not a huge fan of the negotiation that I did, but basically nobody knows what this program is really going to cost. Right now there's 2 avenues. There's a program with waste management that takes this material to the LA County sanitation districts where it's put in an anaerobic digester at a water treatment facility. The tipping fee, the fee that they charge if you bring them that material is currently $85 a ton. Trash is about $35 a ton under the county contract, so it's expensive material. There are other programs being developed, but again, this is not a typical material that trash haulers collect. It's very acidic, it may leak, the seals in the trucks may go out. That's why the pricing was $217,000 and you know, basically we negotiated back and forth to get the rate as low as possible. It's a pilot program, so if somebody else comes along that can provide this service at a lower cost, you can certainly elect to go with them. This is to gather data to find out how much this service actually costs to perform, because again, in January of 2019, you're going to have to roll it out to virtually every business in the city that has 4 cubic yards or more of trash per week. So that's roughly 90% of your trash service subscribers are going to have this program. Why don't we just foist it upon the 11 firms that are under the state's microscope at this point in time? The challenge is it is going to be about $10,000 a year for those businesses. So my concern to the city would be, is that really realistically trying to comply and implement a program? Again, you're a very small city, so you don't have a large business community to defray this cost of. There's only 11 people under the mandate now. For example, the city of Irvine that I work in, they have several hundred firms that are under the mandate, so they can actually do a full route and keep the costs lower, although they're not tremendously low there either. But again, that would be the potential issue with the state, is if you say, well, we're going to make the ratepayer pay it and it's $10,000 a year, that's probably not a program anybody is going to select and implement. So again, what we tried to do is make it as low an impact at all to existing ratepayers, and also to make them understand that you're next. January of 2019, you're going to have a program. If we don't do anything, we're not going to know how much it costs to do that service in Los Alamitos. You're a fairly unique community as far as the size of the business community to do this type of program. So with that, hopefully I've answered most of the questions, but I'm here to answer any others that you have.
So I got a couple questions for you. So when you're doing the evaluation of Los Alamitos, and there's 11 companies here that potentially meet the requirement, obviously you can think of easy ones like restaurants that could have a lot of waste like this. The cheese paper example is a little bit limited because hopefully that's in somebody's car driving away. But the reality is the office or the kitchen stuff that they really are trying to capture. And I guess my question is, you know, doing the assessment of Los Alamitos, if somebody has 4 or 8 cubic yards as a bin, has somebody got into the bin to find out how much is actually organic waste?
Well, yes, actually, Republic Services did a survey where they went to dumpster diving throughout your city, and they identified roughly, I think it was 7 businesses through their survey. What I did is the state actually developed a matrix where you could look at a business's, I always want to say SIC code, I'm an old guy, NCAIS code, whatever the business identifier is, and the amount of trash service that you have per week, and it would indicate whether you are potentially under the mandate. So dumpster diving, that survey, and coming forward and looking at some route information, we bumped it up to 11 that we think are definitely needing some type of program to be under the mandate.
So just now to kind of get to one level lower than that,
Okay.
so let's say an 8 cubic yards, is the estimate based on all of your assessment normalization 2 cubic yards of the 8 are waste, and that's what gets you to $229,000 or however much it is per year?
No. The costs of the service are 2 components. One is the service component for the driver, the truck, the fuel, the wear and tear, the insurance. The other piece is the actual dump fee, which is per ton. So again, that was one of the areas of negotiation. Is I felt that the figure that they presented for the dump fee assumed that everybody would do such a great job and get all of those organics. In reality, as a person who implements a lot of programs with the business community, they're busy with other things. They're not going to be perfect in participating. And again, everybody's estimating how much organic waste is really there. So we set a more reasonable bar for what we felt was going to be collected to help bring that rate down. I mean, once it's established up here, you really can't get that money back. But if we establish at a reasonable level and after 6 months it turns out, hey, you know what, there's a little more or a little less, we can always adjust then. Again, this is a pilot program that runs until the end of 2018.
So the little more, little less, but what we're talking about is a potentially lock stock percentage addition on top of trash contracts. So how do we go a little more, a little less if we're charging a fixed value percentage to companies when we're really basing it off heuristics and standards that may not scientifically prove to be exact? How do we make the adjustment? Or is the pilot program just something that we have to deal with for until 2019 at the cost on our businesses?
Well, the pilot program's advantageous for 2 reasons. Number one, you come into compliance, and I'm not going to say that there's no city that's not with an organics program at this point in time, but you are in the minority. So again, it immediately jumps through that hoop. You're administering a program, you've offered one through the only really reasonable entity to provide that at this point in time. Number 2, because it's a pilot, you're not tied to that figure or tied to this rate. It's a study period. Again, the rate and what's been negotiated was I think, very aggressively done if you look at what some other cities are incurring. The challenge is you only have about $1.3 million in total commercial revenue a year, so that makes $120-some a big percentage. Rather, well, it's 1.5 million. So again, the city the size of Irvine with 15 million in commercial billings, 130,000 would be a blip on the radar. So again, your size is a challenge when dealing with a brand new program that the state says implement it now. So that's the option.
Last question, or I got two questions, but the other question is, so when you model this, it's got constraints, like it would need a truck and a crew to pick this up at sporadic residents or businesses, and it's got tipping fees that come at a certain time per tip. So because we're so small, I guess when looking through the detail provided in the staff report, I wasn't convinced, again, the data will set you free. I wasn't convinced that whether it was a constraint of the capacity to do at one time is because we're so small that we're actually penalizing the businesses, because within that truck there's more capacity to pick up a city that has a lot more, and dumping a lot more.
That's a
and
good
so
point.
it kind of concerned me that we were, and then again I'll go back and park on the 8.2% trash increase to the businesses that is a fixed amount that isn't negotiable once we put it into effect. And so how do we tell the business that we're really trying to work this thing out with through the pilot process?
Okay.
Tell them to wait for 2 years? And
Two questions. First one, this is basically, I think, 1/13 of a trash truck and a driver. So you're actually getting economies of scale of multiple communities. So it's not like we're buying a truck. Those trucks cost $450,000 each. So that was part of the negotiation, to make sure that the share you were paying matched up to what you were likely to need and incur in that service. As far as the tipping fees and the unknowns and the ability to adjust, that's the reason we were doing a pilot program with 2 periods called out. After 6 months, we're going to look at what it's actually costing and adjust the rate. And then one more time, and I think it was October of 2018, we would adjust the rate again. So nobody's being unfairly charged or out money. And again, is it perfect? I wish I had a crystal ball. It's not. It's the safest and best figure that we could reach mutual agreement on to get the city into compliance.
Okay, this is the last question. So when you made a comment that we are in a minority of cities that have adopted a pilot program, based on the staff report that we see that the process of establishing a pilot has been in process for over a year. So is Los Alamitos, if, because our community, I'm sure, is going to ask, why opt into the pilot program? Why don't you just wait and let the rest of the county figure this out, and then they will use that to do the precision part, give our businesses a couple years to plan for something like this and let them know that this is coming. What would be your response to the businesses on our behalf?
Well, I think it was in January, the city, along with all the other cities in the state of California, got a letter from Scott Smithline, who's the director of Cal Recycle, saying, we're really serious about this. In Orange County, I think there's 33, 34 cities. All of the CR&R cities are in compliance. They built a $30 million anaerobic digester out in Paris, California, and they take all their organics there. So that's roughly 20 of the 34. Waste Management has a number of others, I think 5. They all have programs, including the little city of Laguna Woods that I also do work for. Again, North County, I'm fuzzy on some of the cities, but I think everybody's jumped through that hoop because the state has been pretty adamant. As Brett and Steve can attest, Cal Recycle comes out for their annual survey. They were here in April, and I think again in July, and we're really hammering home. You just did your annual report to them where there's a whole special section on this organics program that they want to make sure you're jumping through the hoop. So again, if you don't do anything, you'll probably get notice back from the state pretty quick. They're just in Long Beach, their local monitoring or their technical assistance office And again, it's 8%. I get it. I've been a businessman with my own business since 1991. For a $100 a month bill, that's about $8 a month that the small folks are going to have to pony up and pay. I think it's the state that we live in. You know, I go to the gas pump and I'm paying 40-some cents a gallon for a certain tax. It's the law. The time to argue that stuff is before the legislature bangs the gavel and says, here, now do it. So again, my effort, because I'm not a true believer, I'm probably the least political correct environmental consultant you'll meet. I try to find out the most cost-effective way to jump through that hoop that we have to jump through. And again, one of the things that I like to do is work with that business that's charged that extra $8 and say, okay, let's figure out how we can cut the trash service down to save you that $8 back so it's revenue neutral. So again, that's another part of the technical assistance piece that's planned to counteract that increase.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to say thank you, Troy, for your comments. It's just in that same vein. So we don't offer the pilot program. We want to give it 2 years before it's mandated. We will, to your point, are we going to get a letter then at the point where we're going to face fines imminently?
Again, I don't have a crystal ball. What I can tell you honestly is that under AB 939, I think there were 4 cities that received fines in the whole state of California. So what makes me nervous about this is the whole climate change debate, the political winds that are going about, and the fact that the Air Resources Board is involved. They're not Cal Recycle. They are an agency that, at least in part, funds itself through fining folks. So their inclusion makes me nervous. As a person that's been doing this since 1991, that's kind of unprecedented and new. So I don't really know how to be an odds maker for that.
Okay. And the last kind of comment is just for the 11 businesses that are there. You know, some of these businesses, and I guess I was sending a list because I had a question about this, are probably some that, you know, we would look at and say that probably could afford this, you know, and you could think the school district, Arrowhead product, larger organizations, but there are a lot of smaller restaurants on here, and even, you know, Catella Deli Gourmet Pie, you know, St. Hedwig Catholic School, that would be severely impacted if these costs was spread over just those 11 businesses. So I guess as much as I would not be in favor of starting this pilot program, with the risk of fines, I would not support just this fee being only to 11 businesses, because there would be an adverse effect for some of these, you know, that really could not stomach that cost spread over just those 11 businesses.
Yeah, you know, as it turned out, Mr. Benfani's questions and mine were very similar, so if I could just recap real quickly. Under state law, we have no choice here.
Yes, you're mandated to administer and monitor and report on an organics waste recycling program to recycle all of the identified materials.
Okay, and when we say best contract in the staff report, there really is no competition. So we're all we can do is we're comparing to what we know other cities around us are paying.
When you're talking about comparable rates or comparable increases?
Yes.
All we can do is compare to those that have implemented in the increases that they've put in place. In surrounding cities, I think one of Republic's other customers has a proposed rate increase in the 18% range, and so we do compare favorably to that. But it's difficult to compare apples to apples. It's just that we think that we compare favorably in terms of the rate increases that are out there.
And part of our problem is there's a real lack of information for comparison purposes at this time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when we talk about spreading costs, we really only have to do that for 14 months, correct?
Correct. In January 2019, every business with 4 cubic yards of trash or more per week will have to have an organics program. They fall under the compliance tier then. It started at 8 cubic yards a week. Then January this year it dropped to 4 cubic yards of organic waste per week. Then it transitions to 4 cubic yards of trash.
Okay.
Doesn't matter the organic content. You have to have a program for that sandwich and what have you that you may generate in your break room. at your insurance company office. It's pretty extensive.
So would I be correct in saying it's not, the spreading effect is not as onerous as it sounds, that it only goes on for a year plus a little bit?
A 13, 14-month period of time, which would allow you to collect some data to see what does it really cost, so that when everybody has to pony up, perhaps the rates don't change. Again, we would then have some data to be able to argue and say, why do you want another increase? We know this is how much it costs. We can extrapolate to a full route. So data can be your friend in that area.
In conclusion, is it safe to say that this is an unfunded mandate, but in effect it's an unfunded mandate on business? They're not.
It is, but then they hook you in as the city, saying you're free to develop any enforcement and fining mechanisms. The state's kind of putting the city in the position to potentially be the bad guy there to make this happen, but they're also saying you need to administer and monitor and report to us on what's happening, so you've kind of been put in the middleman role with the way the legislation's written.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Oh, thank you. Good questions from my colleagues here. So, is there any requirement, I guess I'll look at the city manager, that we have to go to Republic? Can't we go to CR&R, who might have already had implemented some infrastructure and has trucks and have amortized those across their customers?
I think Mike's the one to answer that, but he touched on that in terms of the competitors that might be available to do this service.
Did we ask them? That's a question. Did you ask them?
Yeah, the CR&R's facility is in Paris, California, in the Inland Empire. So it is not logistically
but they're
a cost-effective solution.
They're servicing 20 cities in Orange County. Are they 20 cities far away from here or close by?
Well, Stanton is close by.
All right, so presumably for the 11 businesses, because they're not going to stop at all commercial accounts, right? Only these 11?
Yes, the minimum service is the ones that have the mandate.
So the question of the city, did we go to other haulers and ask them if they could bid on this?
No, we didn't. We really were relying on Mike as our expert to go through this and help us.
I understand. Yeah, I understand the analysis. I appreciate that, but we didn't really ask because someone who does serve 20 cities may have a truck that's filled to 1/13 of their capacity just down the road, and they may be able to. We might be able to realize the economy of scale on that. We just don't know the answer, correct?
Well, no, sir. Respectfully, the CR&R model, I do audit that firm frequently for a number of jurisdictions. I am in contact with them. I did early on in the process discuss that as a potential eventuality. Would you guys be interested in doing an organics program? Off the record. The city's more than able during this pilot program to instigate a measure like that. But Waste Management was talked to, CR&R was talked to, and a firm called National Organics Recycling that I'm aware of in the city of Ontario that has a piece of equipment that can process this material. None of them wanted to step into that fray to compete in a franchise with another franchise hauler. Again, you have a person that's here that services cities in the area. It's highly doubtful, number one, that another firm could provide an economy of scale to meet or beat the rate that we were able to get negotiated.
But I'm going to challenge that. So, so this is some implementation costs, startup costs, paying for trucks, paying for the anaerobic
infrastructure to do the collection.
So my point is, if CR&R is already doing that, that infrastructure is already existing. So when you say it can't compete, it's like I would strongly disagree with that. They ought to be able to compete, and then in spades, because they've already got infrastructure in place.
Potentially, again.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So I'm going to stop there. So the question of the staff is, why didn't we ask them to bid on this? And that's a question for staff.
Well, I think Mike said informally he's talked to these others to determine if that.
I'd like to see something formal, not.
We didn't do a formal. We did not do that.
Because again, if someone already has infrastructure in place, And you know what made me think about this when Jeff was here last month and talking about this? It made me think about the Sand District, who has anaerobic digesters. And gosh, it would be really nice if we could just dump all that over there. I don't know if they have the capacity, but they're doing exactly the same thing. So it's
Well,
not.
there's one firm that has that program. It's Waste Management, and it's part of their core program. And so that's actually where your material would be dumped. So again, if you're looking at going to an outside firm for a quote, again, Waste Management or CR&R are the ones that I informally talked to. Based upon that, they weren't interested in bidding. But again, if you want to put that out to bid, that's the city's prerogative.
But again, so so just because we have a franchise with the solid waste, this is a kind of a new wrinkle, right? I mean, we're now implementing additional fees, which we haven't really gotten into that discussion in terms of Prop 218. Are these really legal fees we can impose without any kind of noticing of the public? And then I'm going to just say I really, really, really strongly disagree with amortizing the cost over everybody, all the commercial accounts, because we're not going to stop there, right? They're not going to stop there and pick something up, even if it's an empty organics waste recycling. So we're taxing or putting a fee on these users to subsidize the 11 that are really impacted. And, you know, kind of in a free market sense, that $10,000 a year, they're going to recover that through higher prices that they pass on to the consumers. And that's the way it should be, because when I go to, let's say, a restaurant called Catella Deli, and all of a sudden my pastrami sandwich goes up $2 because of this, at least I'll understand why. Instead of seeing somebody who is a semi-die who probably produces very little of any organic waste, they're going to get hit with this, and it's going to have to affect their customers of semiconductor parts. So I'm not going to support amortizing this across all the 900, 700 commercial accounts to benefit 11, which is a 1.5% benefit for the rest, you know, for that, and charge everybody. So I'm not going to support that from that standpoint. Yeah. And I understand it's, you know, painful for some, but you know, that's the reality. This is something that mandates from our leaders up in Sacramento that you know, if we mask it and we really mask the pain, then you know, it doesn't get changed. We don't have the outrage that the next time something like this comes and it really starts affecting individuals, like the gas tax, right? This affects a lot of people. It doesn't affect me, but anyways, you
no, I appreciate it. And again, that's a gamble or a calculated decision that the city council can make. Again, how it's going to be enforced or implemented is anybody's guess. If you don't have a program and then St. Hedwig's Catholic School gets, you know, zinged because you don't have an organics program, they said, hey, there wasn't one I could have. Tough, you need to have one, here's your fine. And then, you know, again, I get it, you're preaching to the choir. You got to push back on some things.
And let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So some restaurants that I've noticed, they have a thing to collect used fats, the oils and what have you.
Yeah.
Is that a mandate from the state?
That is actually something that was kind of a free market program for years and years, and they used to pay, you know, a quarter for a pound for the grease. They don't anymore.
Yeah, the city does not get in the middle of collecting grease and having it sent wherever it gets rendered and disposed and used,
well,
correct?
It's a charge now, and again, some cities went down that road of trying to get into franchising the grease collections, and that was met with a pretty strong resistance from the Restaurant Association and actually the companies like Baker Commodities, Dex Foods that are in that business, so the city's backed away.
So there's a commodity there, and there's a...
Yeah, and so, not the best analogy, again, the challenge is now we're creating a whole new class of material that we have to have a program for, but there's not a lot of providers out there. So again, I deal with haulers all the time. I'm not aware of a situation, and I do California, Nevada, Texas, Georgia, and Florida I've worked in, where a hauler that's franchised in this city has another hauler that's franchised in another city that comes in to do this little bit of work. It's possible. It's possible, but
so I guess my last question is really towards the city attorney. So we don't have to follow Prop 218 on this one in terms of imposing fees across the users?
Not in this case where it's state mandated. It's a state mandated program.
Okay.
And it is user fees. It's not city collecting fees.
Okay. With that, back to you.
So, Warren, if I can understand what your line of questioning is, your thought process would be to take this to an RFP process to get CRNR and Waste Management to bid on this, and then to have a staff report on what the cost would be
That would
to
be
be
what-
allocated towards the 11 individuals that are on there.
Yeah, well, regardless, I would say not to subsidize the 11 with the other 700 is actually put the true cost where it belongs, and the market will take care of passing it on to the consumers. It will. Just the way it works, right? I mean, why mask it and I'll say penalize the smaller commercial, the 4 cubic yards of non-organic waste? Why penalize them with an additional fee? Even it may be minor, but it adds up over time. I think we put the fee where it belongs.
Warren, how do you reconcile, though, at the end of the 2 years when the period expires and they do across all, and they tell everybody that's got a 4 cubic yard bin, guess what? It's time to pay up, and you're the business owner that maybe has a sandwich or something thrown in the trash. It's as ridiculous as that is. That's what it's heading to.
I understand,
So
but again, will they have their own separate barrel that they can also separate out, and that might be a $4 a month pickup versus $8 a week. We don't know, right? Again, that's the pilot program. We're going to get data and information out of this, so we'll know.
So you're really trying to focus on how do we adjudicate the pilot program right now?
Again, it's there's startup costs, right? Initialization costs that unfortunately that we're going to bear, right? I mean, somebody is, and ultimately, no matter what you do, it's the consumer. Whether it's the nail salon that uses a dumpster, they're going to pay this, and whoever goes to that, the barber that I go to, they'll end up paying it. Well, I don't know, maybe is that organic? Cares organic?
It might be 3 cubic yards a week of trash,
Yeah.
so they'll miss 2019, but they'll get them in 2020, or if
But
we
again,
don't hit 50%.
that fee might be significantly less when we have the data, correct? It could be a $8 a month instead of $8 a week.
Potentially. I mean, I do a lot of audits of haulers for operational costs, for rate increases and all that. I think this is pretty close to what it's really going to cost them to do it, but you never know. It definitely could go down, but we wanted to get it as low as possible, again, for the reasons that you cite. But again, I think the benefit to the other businesses that don't have the service right now is January 2019 is quick, and we really want precise data so that the ultimate rate that everybody's charged is accurate, as accurate as possible.
Just to chime in on Warren's thoughts and some of the others, I would like to get a formal response from Waste Management and specifically CRNR, because I understand that they service Rossmore and they also service the school district. So they already do have the infrastructure driving on our city streets, because 3 of the schools and the district are in the city. So at least to get their formal response, I think we owe it to the businesses for our due diligence and also transparency, because right now it just looks like we're increasing the fees. And I really, trash is a very sensitive subject in the city, and I really want to go overkill on making sure that we do what's best for our businesses. So at least some sort of formal response from them, other than just verbally they said they're not interested. I mean, push the fact that they already are in the city because of the school district, and that's quite a large customer that is going to produce quite a large bit of organic waste. So to throw 11 more businesses on that they're already here anyway, there might be the economy of scales that might save us some money in that, and then make some decisions based on that. So.
Yeah, it seems like we do have a precedent, even in our current franchise agreement, that for people that want to go with bins to do stuff within their yards and stuff, that we've allowed different franchisees into our city as an open process. We have at least 4 other companies that come in a franchise agreement that's much smaller than the main one. But to me, and I think, with the Air Resources Board, and I've dealt with that outside of here in my professional life, it is a pain. I think that, probably the best way to kind of end this, if we're going down this path, is that we absolutely are trying to find ways to meet the requirement of finding the cost, and we really would just want to extend out to have the RFP or some other alternatives looked at other than just the single source. And I would also say to you, sir, I think that it's been very helpful to have an expert in the room to be able to talk to. You know, we definitely heard the Republic view in our last meeting, and, you know, it's kind of having an unbiased and a bigger global perspective, you know, and you're not pushing us either way, you're facilitating us through this. So thank you for your patience in going through this.
Thank you. And no, I respect all the questions, and again, it's challenging. But ultimately, you guys are trying to do what's best for your businesses. I respect that. Thanks.
Do I have a motion? So the item fails, or are we going to direct staff?
I don't know. We take a break maybe, huh?
Yeah.
Recess?
Can we do a?
I thought that ended when Rich was no longer mayor. So we are going to take a break?
Actually,
Yeah, I think we are.
Okay.
Oh, we've already missed the 7:45 drop dead. So
Okay.
let's do a 10-minute recess.
Thanks.
To make a motion for this item? All right, with that uncomfortable silence, I'll go ahead and start it. And my motion is to reject the recommendation and go out to bid for other competitors to see at least where we fall with them, using the providing services in either our community for other municipalities or in local cities, and come back to see where we are for that, so we can show our due diligence, our lack of, our transparency, and then also to make some educated decisions on this very uneducated and unplanned process from the state.
Second.
Sorry, just
Okay.
on the two. So then in terms of the rate increase, are you looking to have a proposal that would do for one option of having this the spread out and amortize everybody, or just those 11 businesses?
I think that's probably part 2 of the discussion, since right now my motion is not to approve this.
Okay.
And to come back, and at least we've got to go through our due diligence, and I think we skipped a step by nobody's fault, other than because it's just everything is so unknown. So to go back and do the due diligence of coming and getting formal responses from all providers in the area, and then we can see what the rates are, and then that's a separate discussion of we still have to do this program, and then how we introduce a pilot program based on all of the rates we have and making a decision from that.
Can I just ask for clarification? And Mike, I just want to ask a question. If we, the potential would be there to issue a letter of interest out there to see, to get it out there to see if they're even interested. And then if they are interested in an RFP, that may be.
Well, that was one suggestion, because an RFP requires paying somebody like me, let's say, to prepare an RFP and then send it out and get the responses back and judge them. You might get the same result if you just addressed official correspondence from the city to a number of haulers that would they be interested in responding to a request from the city for the service. So again, if all of them say, you know, no, we would just want to serve you as your trash hauler and do everything, we wouldn't just want to do organics. But they might say yes, you know, again, they might say, sure, we'd love to bid on it. Then you would go through the RFP process, but that would be a way to get your answer sooner rather than later, and then potentially have some type of program in place this calendar year. And to me, calendar year is important because that's how the state looks at your AB 939 compliance report. It's for a calendar year. So if you come in December and you get an organics program, you can say in this calendar year we came into compliance, where if it's January of 17, you missed. So that would be more timely. But again, the city attorney can clarify me on, can a city send out a letter of requesting interest? Again, if you can, that might be a quicker way to get your answers.
And I would be fine with the letter of interest if we can remind the haulers who we're sending out to that they already service here or next door to here. And the economies of scale. And we know that CCNR is here because of the school district, because of Rossmore, and gently remind them that it would behoove them to be interested at least to provide us some pricing.
And again, that's a good point compared to a casual conversation. Hey, would you guys be wanting to bid on this organics program, as opposed to the city reaching out officially and saying, you know, we want you to jump in the ring.
Kind of a two-part, a letter of interest, and then if there's interest, then the RFP. If there's no interest, then there's no RFP.
Yeah.
Right, but then we can come back and say, we've done our due diligence. We can't force haulers to respond to this, but I really want, I'm particularly interested in CCNR just because of where they are.
Well, and then the other aspect would be you could, you know, during the negotiations, your hauler said a couple times, why don't you just put the contract out to bid, because we're losing money on your contract. So again, I just wanted to get that in there, because you have a very good rate. You guys have done a great job in the contract that you've negotiated and all of that. So again, you can send out a letter and hopefully get your answer. You can do an RFP, or you could do an RFP for everything. I just wouldn't advise for the latter, because I think you have a great contract and a great rate, so I wouldn't.
Right, and that's a
jeopardize
completely other conversation meeting, and hopefully way later.
Okay.
I know this community, not just our city, is extremely sensitive to trash contract increases, regardless of the reason. They don't care. They just know they're paying more. And so I want to be uber sensitive to that as well, and make sure that we just do our due diligence on this. So,
Mayor, can I just ask if we can do an amendment to your motion, potentially also to ask staff to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce and the 11 businesses, and we should conduct a workshop in the chamber and talk about this as partners with them and see how, you know, look, this is what we're trying to do. This is trying to how we're going about it. We've got a burning bridge behind us, so this thing isn't going to last. So that, you know, gentlemen like that came and talked to us, they would have an understanding, because, you know, you could argue that this is the business's problem and we're kind of getting asked to facilitate it. So why don't we bring them to the table and ask what directly they see, so that if we do have to make a decision in December, we actually are doing it on behalf of our businesses and everybody's kind of buying into it.
Sorry, and I just had one last question while you're here, because I try to take advantage of the expertise that you're bringing. To Councilmember Kusamoto's point about us subsidizing it across all the businesses and drilling a free market model, within that confines of 11 businesses, there's obviously different organic waste needs between those 11 businesses. So in terms of the hospital, which may have a huge amount of organic waste, opposed to saying Head of the Catholic Church, because I just had the list in front of me, you know, there will be a difference in there. So is there an option within those 11 businesses to allocate it proportional to what their organic waste needs would be?
Well, certainly you would, again, the other model that cities use is they establish a rate sheet. So for a 32-gallon cart, it's this much. For a 64-gallon cart, all the way up to a 2 cubic yard bin is typically the largest size they'll use for organic waste collection, because it's very heavy, 6 days a week. So again, the reality is you take that $129 and you break it into all those pieces, it works out to about $10,000 a year on average for those 11 firms, slightly higher. So now proportionately, maybe St. Hedwig's is $500 more a year, and now the hospital is, you know, $35,000 more a year. It depends on service, but certainly you could do that.
So I just want to be clear, if we are going to go and we are going to make that process, and we do have to do it before the end of the year, that we are looking at a model that would not spread $11,000 equally to all those 11 businesses, you know, 12,000, whatever it comes out to be. And we look at a model that does proportional to what organic waste they're actually producing, if we want to go with a true free market approach towards this mandate.
But I think wouldn't that be a fascinating discussion to have with the 11 plus, and see the reaction to see where we end up. Again, I mean, it's why would we want to be the bad guys and trying to just make a decision either way without getting their input in it?
Well, just one thing real quick, to be the voice in the wilderness, but my concern is that the state is not on a free market system, and that they say you must do this. And so if we do a program that's going to cost a business $30,000 a year, they're not going to do it. So that would be my only concern with the city, would, you know, coming back with the state say, well, you put something in place that you knew was cost prohibitive. So you really didn't comply. And again, that's a stretch. They may not do that, but that would be the reason that I argued against the rate for service, because it's a way of kind of jumping through the hoop, but we really know these guys aren't going to do that. So again, working with those groups, seeing what they would pay, you know, that all good steps. So
But
again,
as you've mentioned, AQMD could come in and impose some pain to ensure enforcement. So there's that enforcement part of the
yeah,
equation. So
potentially
Sure.
it's different than I've seen the state do before involving the Air Resources Board. So that's the concern, but nobody really knows what's going to happen. And they're rulemaking all the time. Right now they're meeting on those organics. They want 20% of that to be donations to feed people, which is a great cause, and we definitely want to do that. But is 20% of that organic waste really able to be donated? And now that's the new mandate that's down. So these people you have recycling, now you have to make sure that 20% of it's donated to, and so again, that's something else that's wrapped into your program. So there's layers and there's evolving layers to this. So it'll be an interesting period for you guys to get all this information back, and anything I can do to help, I'm happy to.
Thank you.
All right.
Been very educational. Okay, so my amended motion is to send out a letter of interest to local trash haulers regarding their interest in providing organic waste pickup, and also to assemble the 11 businesses that would be affected by this pilot program as more of an educational and getting their input that will ultimately guide us in the direction that we need to go anyway. But at least we'll have some buy-in, maybe not happy buy-in, but some buy-in. And then if there is a letter of, if there are interest from other trash haulers, then we would release an RFP to get true cost to be able to do some comparison.
Does the maker of the second go along with that amendment?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect, thank you. Okay, Richard, item I.
This is real simple. I just was up here yesterday on the site of the Coyote Creek Bike Trail resurfacing, and just want to congratulate everybody who was involved, starting with Troy and the long battle it's been, and then the job that was done in the actual resurfacing. And it's really beautiful up there. And, you know, we've taken a piece of ground that was completely wasted, and now there's people out there walking their dogs and riding bikes and taking advantage of it. So really a hell of a job.
Good, thank you.
With that, I'll move the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 12A, ordinance. Consideration of urgency ordinance number 2017-05. I'll let you go ahead and
Thank you,
do
Mayor. City Council, the city attorney will do this
Thank you.
staff report.
Yes, thank you. This staff report and proposed ordinances are in front of you because, as you know, the municipal code prohibits the city attorney from prosecuting criminal cases. There's no state requirement of that. It's just been in our code for years. The law firm that is taking over for my law firm as city attorney is currently acting as city prosecutor for red light camera violations. In order for that firm to continue handling the red light camera violations, you need to amend the city, the municipal code to get rid of that prohibition. And also these two ordinances, one urgency and one regular, would allow the city to instruct the city attorney to handle other kinds of state violations. And let me make a distinction. The code prohibits the city attorney from prosecuting state violations. It doesn't prohibit the city attorney from prosecuting municipal violations. So this would open it up so that in cases where the city attorney is authorized by state law or by the Orange County District Attorney to prosecute state misdemeanors or infractions, the city attorney firm could do that. There are two ordinances. The first one is urgency, and the reason for the urgency is that The new city attorney firm is taking over on October the 1st. A regular ordinance could not be effective before the middle of November with first reading and second reading and 30 days. So this would allow them to continue handling the red light camera citations during that interim period. It requires a 4/5 vote of the city council, and the appropriate motion would be to waive the reading in full and authorize reading by title only of urgency ordinance 2017-05, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Los Alamitos, California, repealing and restating section 2.20.010 of the Los Alamitos Municipal Code relating to prosecution of municipal code violations by the city attorney and declaring the urgency thereof.
Do you have any discussion?
So moved.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I do have a question. So, I guess why, the question, why does it need to be broadened from just the red light camera? Because when we enacted this and hired the city attorney's firm, it was really restricted just to red light cameras.
That's correct.
So why broaden it for this one? Because I fear some potentially unintended consequences for maybe a future council, and we may not want to go there. Take a DUI, like a DUI. Would we then look to the city attorney to prosecute somebody for DUI in our city? And then
I don't think the district attorney would allow that, would agree to that.
We're not
But-
hamstrung in that respect.
But it would not, this does not authorize them to prosecute anything other than what they're currently prosecuting unless the city instructs the firm to handle other types of violations. So it's section 2B, where it says, on behalf of the people, when directed by the city council. So only if the city council directs them to handle, let's say, other types of state traffic violations.
What about theft? The local McDonald's or Burger King or not, Jack in the Box gets robbed. That's a state code
Right,
violation.
and the district attorney would never agree to allow the city attorney.
But in this language, we can actually authorize the city attorney to prosecute.
You could,
right?
but they couldn't do it because the DA wouldn't agree. The DA has to agree to allow them to handle any cases. They currently allow the city prosecutor to handle city municipal code violations and red light camera.
And then back in what is it, February or March, our resolution, it restricted it just to those cases, the red light camera.
That's right.
Right. Well, so
This
we
just allows flexibility, and frankly, doesn't matter to me.
Well, that's a heck
I
of
won't
a, that's
be
a heck
here,
of a statement.
I
No, but
think
again,
it's-
if it were your city and you had this broader power, and then now you can be directed by three of us, right?
Right.
To go and prosecute that robber, and then
Why shouldn't the city council be able to instruct the city attorney to do that if it's okay with the DA and it's okay with state law? That's, it's a majority of the city council.
understand, but then do you now have to, now does this body in instructing the city attorney, then do we have to appoint a public defender for that alleged theft, the thief? Do we have to
Well-
appoint? I mean, you start opening a bunch of
and
Pandora's box.
that's one of the reasons the DA would never go along with it, is all those complications. But there are a lot of other infractions in particular that could be prosecuted, traffic infractions that could be prosecuted by the city attorney if the city council wants them to. And if the city council doesn't want them to, they're not allowed to. So, it's majority rule of the city council.
Okay, but there is no reason why we can't bring this and make it restrictive to the red light cameras as we have, right? I mean, instead of broadening, we can actually just focus it in on those.
You could.
Okay. And so there was no reason, or I guess the question is, why was this broadened when we really had it just very narrow?
You'll
and
have to
focused?
ask my successor. The way I drafted it initially, it would just have been the red light camera cases. They suggested broadening it. I thought it was a good idea so that the city council would have that discretion in the future.
Yeah, I don't think I'd like that for the city council. I'm sorry, folks. I think that's dangerous for us, and not just us, but future councils. So, anyways, there's a motion, go ahead, call the vote.
So I guess just a comment. So, for example, Anaheim or Santa Ana have city prosecutors even more active than what here, and they only do prosecute state violations like traffic stuff on behalf of the city and municipal code ordinance violations. So if somebody isn't cleaning up their stuff and we start going after them, so I've only ever seen the city prosecutors going after that at this point. So I guess I interpreted what was done was it absolutely, for the red light district, or red light district, that's right. Whoa. Ow. Yeah, get that one, Shelley.
Oh, man.
So for the red light camera issue, when we go through that, I'm never going to live that one down. As we go through that, to me, it was no different than just having, the problem is our ordinance doesn't allow us to do both. So we were just kind of talking about it. And even if we did have an item that needed to be prosecuted, we would still have to go into closed session, decide as a majority that we were going to prosecute it, and decide that we were going to use our city attorney and have to come to a conclusion that would be reportable. So I guess I didn't look at it as a big deal, but I understand what Warren is saying. But to me, it made sense.
You'd have to amend the ordinance again if you wanted to authorize it, whereas here you would just be allowing the flexibility of the future city council to authorize it.
I actually just had a quick comment, and then based on Warren's comments, something else interesting come up. But can anybody speak to the logic on why this prohibition was in place originally?
I have no idea. And I've never seen it in another city, so.
Okay. Because based on Warren's vote, it puts me in an interesting situation where I could vote no and potentially kill the enforcement of red light cameras, which I'm against. But that being said, I'm not going to be an obstructionist in that sense. I see what we're doing, and I think the will of the council is to continue enforcing red light cameras. So to do this, I can see the validity in opening it up if there's no other prohibitive logic why was a prohibition in place other than just maybe before. So, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and it's a roll call vote.
Councilmember Kusamoto?
No.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Edgar?
Aye.
Mayor Hasselbrink?
Aye. Okay, and the second part of this is for the regular ordinance, which is introduce and waive reading in full, authorized reading by title only of ordinance number 2017-06.
Right, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Los Alamitos, amending and restating Section 2.20.020 of the Los Alamitos Municipal Code relating to prosecution of municipal code violations by the city attorney.
Okay. Do I have a motion on that?
I'll make the motion on that.
Second.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And with that, I'll bring it back to another round of council comments if there are any. Anything from the city manager? All right, we are closing this meeting in memory of Alice Jemsa.